in many of his answers at a time
And
that
we
were
are
Oh, I got
live.
on Joe
I do
Biden
believe.
is the
10
subject that folks
seconds.
will be watching carefully.
He's now, of course, the older candidate now.
Okay,
I
we
do
will be
believe
back
we are
with
live.
this top of the hour now, 9 o'clock on the East
Yes.
Coast here in New York.
This
And
is this is an
Philadelphia,
advertisement.
the
Go
rumor is
play
about to happen
Farm
for
Merge
just
Valley.
away now
Shut
for
Good.
tonight's first
up.
and perhaps last
Get
presidential
off
debate
Farmers Valley,
between Vice
please.
President
Anyway,
Kamala
welcome
Harris
to the
and
Quarreling
former President
Quartet as
Donald
we
Trump.
react
As
to
we've
the
noted, this will be the
presidential
first time these
debate.
candidates
Yes,
have met in
welcome.
While
person,
also
and it's
playing
happening
Farm
on the
Merge
debate
Valley.
stage. Also, the
Okay.
first debate since President Biden
We're
Please.
won
actually
the race
starting like
as
now,
Welcome to
so
the
you can
live
kill that
stream.
game.
Democratic nominee. A lot has happened in a
Welcome
very
to the
compressed
first
period of
Welcome to the
time.
podcast.
live streamed murder of
Why does it
Bill
take
Farm Bill
3 bucks to
Buckley,
milk
a
to make a
sir.
single?
Wait, no, wrong person.
We will simulcast
Diabolical.
right here in
Sorry,
exclusive.
Dilster.
It's taking place
Farm Merge
at the National
Valleys.
Constitution
Oh,
Center
cool.
in Philadelphia.
And
Why
we'll
does
begin
it why does
tonight.
it
There will
take
be no
3 bucks of
audience
milk to
tonight.
make
The
1
candidates'
glass of milk?
microphones will be
That's
Get
open
wild.
while
off
the
the
other candidates
game.
talking. Each
It's
candidate
starting
will get 2
now.
minutes for answers.
Can
There
we
will be
kick him?
closing statements, but no opening statements. So we expect
You're an idiot.
Tell me when
That's
the cool
why.
people get on.
No, seriously, it's like starting
where
now.
all this is going.
Like
It's
Alright.
actually
starting
now.
now.
They're actually going over to Philadelphia
Yeah,
now.
they're literally going over to the debate right now.
Good evening,
Dude,
I'm Dave
it's
Viewer, and
coming
thank you for
in.
joining us for
He
tonight's
just said
ABC
good
News
evening.
presidential debate. We want to welcome viewers watching on ABC and around the world tonight. Vice President Kamala Harris
They're
and
in the
President Donald
debate
Trump are
hall.
just moments away
Yeah,
from
we're in
taking
the
the
debate
stage
hall.
in this
Please,
unprecedented race for
Diabolical.
president.
And I'm Lindsay Davis. Tonight's meeting could be
No,
the
you
most
seriously have no more
consequential
time to
event of
play
their
Farm Valley,
campaigns, with
buddy.
Election Day now less
No,
than 2 months away.
please, my
For Vice
farm, it
President
just got
Kamala
big.
Harris, this is
No,
her first
fine,
debate
you
since
can come back
President
to
Biden
it.
withdrew from the
Okay.
race on July
I'm so
21st.
sad.
Of course, that
All right,
decision
now we're all
followed his
here
debate
watching the
against President
debate.
Donald Trump in June. Since
I'm gonna
then,
refer
this
to
race has
everything
taken on
as
an
in
entirely
Farm Merge
new
Valley
dynamic.
terms.
And that brings us to the rules of tonight's debate. 90 minutes with 2 commercial breaks. No topics or questions have been shared with the campaigns.
They're
The
giving us
candidates will have
commercial
2 minutes
breaks?
to answer questions,
But
and this is the clock. That's what they'll be
I
seeing.
think
2
I
2
minutes.
minutes for
That's how much
rebuttals
it takes to
and
take
1 minute for
3
follow-ups,
buckets
clarifications,
of milk
and
into one.
responses. Their microphones
I
will
do
only
think
be
I
turned
finally
on.
I'm
when
going
you
to
hear
kill
a
you.
signal. No pre-written notes allowed. There
I
is
do
no
think I
audience here
finally
tonight in
figured
this
out the
hall at the
stream
National
issues, by the
Constitution
way.
Center. This is an intimate setting
The
for
stream
2
is
candidates
watchable
who
now.
have never met.
Hey,
President Trump
my
won
favorite
the coin
part so
toss. He
far
chose
is that
to
I
deliver
can't
the
see
final closing
anything.
statement of the evening.
I
Vice
can't hear
President
them.
Harris selected the
That's
podium
Hi,
to the right.
Chris.
So let's now
Join
welcome the candidates
watch
to the
together.
stage. Vice President Kamala Harris
Yes.
and President Donald Trump.
I
Here
don't
they
know where
come.
they're going with the storyline.
It's them.
I don't know where they're going. I don't know where they're going with this
The
part.
blood.
So
Here
Oh, she
comes
shook
the
his hand.
blood.
They shook the hands. I wasn't
Welcome to you
expecting
both.
that.
It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
Good
She
evening.
went
we are
for
looking
it.
forward to a spirited
Yeah.
and thoughtful debate.
It's
So
like,
let's get started.
what is this
I want to
woman
begin
doing?
tonight with the
I was
issue that
confident.
voters repeatedly say is their
Yeah.
number one issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris,
Yeah,
you and
I
President
still
Trump
can't
were
see.
elected 4 years ago, and you're
What
on
does
stage here
communist
tonight,
terrorists
often
have
asks
to
your
say about
supporters, are
how
you
Shut
better
up.
off than you were 4
Kamala.
years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
Oh my God, it's like the Ronald Reagan
I
thing.
was raised as a middle-class kid, and I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition,
Bro, he's
the
already falling
aspirations, the
asleep.
dreams of the American people. And that is
Real.
why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. I was actually,
This
my
isn't
mother
what the
raised my
question
sister
was
and me,
about.
but
Yeah,
the
I was
woman who
about to
helped
say,
raise us, we
so
created
are
a small
our
business. She was
Americans
a small
better off?
business owner.
So
I
what
love
I
small
will is
businesses.
I'll cut
My
your
plan is to
taxes.
give a
You will have more
$50,000
money.
tax
If
deduction
Can
he
I
doesn't
get
look over
a
and say, so it's not a
Can
yes
I
or
get
no, I'm
part
gonna.
of the backbone of
I'm
America's
gonna.
economy.
The
and no
moderator will
ketchup?
probably
On the other hand,
respond. You
his
didn't
plan
answer the
Potato
is to
question.
do what we
fries.
have done before,
Single double
which is to provide a
Triple.
tax cut for
Join this time.
billionaires and
I'll
big
just pull up the debate on my
corporations,
phone.
which
What
will
up?
result in $5 trillion
And
to
water,
America's
please.
deficit. My opponent has a plan that
No,
I call
that's
the
all.
Trump's sales
The
tax,
motherfuckers in
which
the
would be a
Wendy's
Thank you.
20%
for the
tax
podcast.
on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have
she's
said
focusing on
that
what she's
that
going to do
Trump
in the
sales
future,
tax
not,
would actually
you know.
result
Yeah, but that wasn't
for
the
middle-class
question.
families
Okay,
in
but
about
question was, does
$4,000 more
Bidenomics
a
work?
year
And she said, well, what I'm
because
going to
of his
do.
policies and
Yeah,
his ideas
yeah.
about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect
Billions
statement.
and
She knows
billions.
that. We're doing tariffs on other countries.
Glad to know
Other
he kept
countries
that
are going to
trademark.
finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never
Billions
took the
from
tariff
China.
off because there was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation has, which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like
Why is
very
she
few
shaking her
people
head
have
like
ever seen
she
before.
know he's lying?
Probably the worst in our
It
nation's
hasn't
history.
started yet.
We were at 21%,
That would be a
but that's being
perfect
generous
frame
because
to
many
capture
countries are
Kamala
50,
Harris
60,
and just
70, and
put it on
80%
a
higher
meme.
than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics,
Jesus
and also
Christ.
unions.
There are
Unions are going to be
millions of
affected
people
very
pouring
soon.
over the border.
And you see what's
Millions and
happening. You see
millions
what's
and
happening.
There are
with
millions of
counties throughout the United
There are
States.
Inflation
millions of people pouring over the
immigrants.
borders of
You
the
look at
prisons.
Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over
Ohio?
the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're
They've
going
taken
in
over
violently.
Colorado, guys.
These are the
The Mexican
people
immigrants have
that
taken
she
over
and
Colorado.
Biden
No,
Colorado
he didn't mention
destroying our
that.
country.
He
They're
mentioned
dangerous.
freed
They're the
prisoners.
highest level of criminality. And we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I
Colorado has
created
been
one of the
reduced to
greatest
atoms.
economies in the history of our country.
Okay, so
I'll
he
do it
started
again and
good.
even
He
better.
started
We are
out
going to
talking
get to
about the
immigration and
horrible
border
Biden
security during
inflation,
this
which
debate,
is true.
but,
And then he
I
was
would
like,
like to
and
let
because
Vice
of these
President Harris respond on
immigrants,
the
it's like,
economy.
bro.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy
He did leave them in the
since
middle
the
of a
Civil
pandemic.
War.
Yeah,
And
but
what
how
we have
I don't
done
see
is
how the
clean up
disease is
Donald
his fault. It was
Trump's
kind of
mess.
there.
Yeah.
What we have done
No,
and
it's
what
not.
we
He's not
intend
done.
to do is build on what we
Guys,
know are
guys,
the
it was Donald
aspirations
Trump's
and the
fault.
hopes
He
of the
ate the
American
bat,
people. But
guys.
I'm going to tell
True.
you all in this debate
Guys,
tonight,
Yeah, he ate the
you're
bat.
going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name-calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again.
Okay.
I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we
So why
have
the
so much
fuck is
more
your
in
name
common
on
than
it?
what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do. As you
I
know,
think he's
and as
like
she knows
40 or
better than
30
anyone, I have
seconds
nothing
ahead
to
of
do
us.
With Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people.
I
that got
haven't
together,
even
that
read
came
it.
up with some ideas.
I don't
Some
know
good,
who
some
these
bad,
people are.
But it makes no difference. I have
greatest
nothing to do.
economy.
Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially.
Yeah, I think
and
Chris
create
is
a great
definitely
Oh yeah,
economy
Chris is a
like
little
never
bit ahead,
before.
but yeah, isn't
We
his
had the
name
greatest
literally on
economy.
it?
We
Like
got hit
that-
with a pandemic,
Oh,
and the pandemic
watching it
was
live.
not since 1917, where
We're live
100
too,
million
I don't know.
people died. Has there been anything like it? We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in.
This is not
Nobody's
true.
ever
Did a
seen
horrible
anything
job
like
with
it.
the
This is
pandemic.
We
not
made
true.
ventilators for the entire
Everywhere
world.
else it was
we got
solved in a
gowns,
month.
we
It
got
took us like
masks,
3
we did
years.
things that nobody
Yeah.
thought
Nobody
possible.
wants to
And people
quarantine.
give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot
Wait.
of things.
And it
but
also,
not
the
enough
pandemic
credit for
wasn't
great job
over
we
by
did
the
with
time he handed
pandemic.
over the
But
presidency.
the only
We were
jobs
still in
we
the
got
middle
were
of it.
bounce
Right.
back jobs. These were jobs.
Wait, people
bounce back,
people
and it
believe
bounced
you
back,
can
and it
wear
went to their
masks
benefit.
in the-
But I was
It was
the one who
over before
created
it
them.
started,
They know,
really.
And so does everybody else.
Vice
Over
President Harris,
before
will you
it
respond?
took 3 years.
So Donald Trump has no plan
That's
for
because
you.
of bureaucrats.
And when you
Shut
look
up,
at
Luke.
his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan
Trust me,
would
bro.
actually explode the deficit.
Why did she open it
16
with?
laureates
Why
have
did she
described
open it with Goldman
his
Sachs?
economic
Everybody
plan as
fucking
something
hates
that
Goldman
would
Sachs.
increase
I don't know,
inflation,
she's
and
just
by
pulling
the
at
middle of
sources.
next year,
Somebody
would
fact check
invite
her.
a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
It's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors,
It's a soundbite.
think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a
He
great
starts
plan. It's a
shouting
plan
to get
that's
on her
gonna
mic.
Bring up our worth, our value as a country.
It's
It's going to
not
make
a
people want to
soundbite.
be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan. And it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes.
Bro,
doesn't
she
have
gives
a plan.
off
Take a look
she
at
gives
her
off
plan.
Michelle
She doesn't
Obama
have a
energy.
plan.
It's true.
Mr. President, I
You're
do
not
want
wrong.
to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down
Kamala
on this,
Harris
because
is just
your
like how I
plan
look
is
at
what
bro
she
ever
calls
says
is
the most
essentially a
egregious
national
thing.
sales tax. Your
Yeah.
proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with
I just
tariffs
heard
at
of
that
this
level,
bitch like
costs are
2
then
weeks
passed on to the
ago.
consumer.
And I
Vice
still
President
don't
Harris
know
has
who the hell
argued
she
it'll mean
is.
higher prices on gas,
She's
food,
been our vice
clothing,
president for the
medication,
past 4
arguing it
years.
costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year.
Yeah, I still
Do
don't
you
know who
believe
she is.
Americans can afford
He
higher
fell out of a
prices
coconut
because of
tree,
tariffs?
They're going to
duh.
have higher prices. What's going to have, and who's
That's
going to
it.
have higher prices is China and all of the
China.
countries that have been ripping us
China.
off for years.
China.
I was the only president ever. China
That's
was
a
paying us
soundbite.
hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration.
Are they?
We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation
Bro, this arc's
perhaps
about
in
to
the
go
history of our
crazy.
country, because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else.
No, not the cereal.
The people of our country are absolutely
Oops,
dying
Salt
with what they've
Berries
done.
has gone
They've
up
destroyed the
30% under
economy. And all you have
Camila
to do
and
is look at a
Crooked
poll.
Joe.
The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response. And you heard
Well,
what
they're
the
also
president said there,
recovering
because
from
the
a
Biden administration
global
did
pandemic.
keep
Yeah.
a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you
Okay,
respond?
that excuse.
Well,
It's been
let's be
5
clear
years
that
since
the Trump
COVID.
administration
That's not
resulted
excuses.
in
Do
a
you know how
trade
economies
deficit,
work,
one of
Luke?
the highest we've
Still
ever
pulling
seen
the
in the
ripples
history of
because of it.
America.
Yeah,
He
there's still
invited trade
ripples.
wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is, under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out, when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for
bomb
the
the
21st
shit out of
century,
them.
which means focusing
She
on
did
the
say the
details
policy
of
of
what
the
that
US against
requires,
China should be to win,
focusing on
no?
relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI.
What happened
quantum
when
computing,
someone have asked
focusing
this
on
question
what we
30
need
years
to
ago?
do
One
to
candidate
support
go,
America's
one candidate would just go,
workforce,
yeah,
so
we're
that
just gonna
we don't
kill
end
him.
up having on the short end of the stick.
You can still do that.
Workers' rights. But
No.
what Donald Trump did,
I
let's
miss
talk
when the
about this,
winning
with
candidate was
COVID,
like,
is
if
he
the
actually
Chinese do shit,
thanked
I will
President
bomb them.
Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point. When we know that Xi was
Exclamation
responsible
point.
for lacking and not giving us transparency about the
You know, he
origins
wouldn't be
of
serious
COVID.
about it if he didn't put the
First of all, they bought their
exclamation
chips
point.
from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But
What?
if she ever got elected, she'd change
Kamala
it.
for vice
And
president
it
under
would
Trump?
be the end of our country.
Guys, hear me
she's
out.
A Marxist.
Kamala for
VP?
You know she's a Marxist.
She's a
She's a
Marxist.
Marxist?
Kamala, if she
Professor
were
in economics, and he taught her well.
She's a based?
Kamala, as I call her, I call her Kamala.
And when you look at these millions and millions of people
Yeah, that
that are
was
pouring
good.
into our country
was a good
monthly,
choice.
where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State.
I would
pouring
like to
in.
ask
And
where all
just
these
look
people
at what
are.
they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people
Especially
coming in are
California,
criminals. And
Texas.
that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy.
That's not
They
entirely
have,
true.
and she has destroyed our country with policy
Okay, here's
that's
where I
insane.
disagree.
Almost policy that you'd
If
say
there's no
they have to hate
immigrants,
our
then
country.
President Trump.
do
Thank
the
you.
cheap
Lindsay?
labor.
I want to turn
Yeah,
to the
if you
issue
don't have
of
immigrants
Obama
flowing into the
President
country,
Biden
all you have
after
is
they were able
the
to
core
kill Roe v.
population. And if
Wade.
the core
Last
population
year, you
isn't
said
growing
that
very
you were
fast,
proud
you have
to be
nobody to
the
support
most
their
pro-life
jobs.
president in American history. Then last month, you said that your
Who am I gonna give
administration
the
would be
shit
great
jobs?
for women and their reproductive
Okay,
rights.
Luke, shut up.
In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of
And
West
the baby,
Virginia, the
like,
previous
coming
governor
out of the
West
womb?
Virginia, not the current governor, is doing an excellent
That's
job.
called
But the
infanticide.
governor
Oh,
before,
yeah,
That
because
is
that's
just,
said,
that's just called
death.
shooting the baby or
born,
whatever.
and
Like,
we will
I don't
decide
think that's
what to do
legal.
with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And
What?
that's why I did that,
What?
because that predominates, because
Huh?
they're radical. The Democrats
All
are
I-
radical
I'm
in
zoned
that.
out. All I
And
heard
her
was
They want to kill
execution
babies.
is-
They're gonna
I
shoot
don't
them in
think the
street
Democrats are
dogs.
pushing for killing babies. What the hell?
I
Definitely makes more
President
sense.
Abortion
Donald
in the
Trump
9th
going,
month
"Kill
is
the
absolutely
baby."
fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born.
Still waiting for
is
someone to
okay.
explain to me
And
why.
that's
What is
not okay
brother
with me.
yapping
Hence
about?
the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years. They've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the
Due to the
exceptions
genius
for
and hard
rape,
work of
incest,
6
and life of the
geriatrics,
mother. I
we
believe
were
strongly
able
That
to
I
take
put
your rights
there.
away. Yeah.
85% of Republicans do. Exceptions, very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're
No,
going to see,
they
look, this
fucking
is an
didn't.
issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every
Has
legal
it really
scholar,
torn our country
every
apart?
Democrat, every Republican, liberal,
people
conservative,
do
they
talk
all wanted
abortion
this
centers
issue to
like
be brought
every
back to
single
the states
day.
where the
I
people
mean, like, we
multiple
talk about it,
conversations.
but, like, I feel like it's only in,
Now,
like, the
Ohio,
purview right
yeah,
now.
I've
the
had
vote was
multiple
somewhat liberal.
conversations with
Kansas, the
people
vote was
who
somewhat
have the
liberal,
complete
much more
opposite
liberal
beliefs of
than
me, and I'm
people
like,
would have thought.
yeah,
But each
I mean, like, I see where you're
individual
coming from.
state
It's just,
is
like,
voting.
personally,
It's the vote
I
of
don't
the
see
people
that.
now. It's
I
not
still-
tied up in
I
the
still
federal
don't see the
government.
issue.
I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it, and the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it.
It took
And I give
courage.
tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
Right.
Madam Vice President,
Thank
I wanna get your
you.
response to
Thank
it.
you,
Thank you,
moderator.
ma'am.
As I said, you're going to hear a bunch of
Thank
lies,
you, ma'am.
and that's
I love
not
how she
actually
looks
a
him dead in the eye
surprising fact.
and says that.
Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states,
Donald Trump
there
looking
are
at the
Trump
camera every so
abortion
often with the
bans,
smoldering
which make
autistic
it
gaze.
criminal for a doctor or nurse
No,
to
he's falling
provide health
asleep.
care in one state.
Yeah.
It provides
His gaze is
prison for
wandering.
life. Trump
Got
abortion
made
bans
fun of
make
on the
no
internet the
exception
last
even
time
for
for just
rape and
staring
incest,
directly
which
into the camera,
understand
so
what
now
that
he's looking
means.
everywhere.
A
You see?
survivor of a
Yeah.
crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that. And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason
She's
to sign a
spitting,
ban
though.
because
She's real.
We've gotten what everybody
Hold on.
wanted. Democrats,
Hold on.
Republicans,
Isn't like the
everybody
Republican Party like, the government shouldn't interfere with
the states
and
and
stuff,
are voting,
and the people.
And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible.
Away from the
states are now voting. What she says is
outlaw the
an
abortion
absolute
ban.
lie. And as far as the abortion ban,
Real.
I'm not in favor of abortion ban,
One
but
state.
it doesn't matter because this
Rose,
issue has now been taken over by
Michigan.
the states.
Rose,
Would you veto
I'm
a
sorry,
national
it's
abortion
out of
ban
my
if you
hands,
Well, we'll have to,
motherfucker. You're
because
the
again,
president.
two things.
Real.
Number
Yeah,
one, she said
real,
she'll go
yeah.
back to
Yeah.
Congress. She'll
The
never get
only
this
It's out of your
back.
hands,
That's
buddy.
what
You
we
can make it in your hands with an
Especially
executive
now with
order
the
like
Bro,
that.
this is put it in your hands.
Essentially
If
50-50
you
in
really,
both Senate
if you're
and the
really
House.
not
She's not going to get the
fucking
vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's
against
just talk.
abortion,
You know what
as
it
you
reminds me of?
claim.
When they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea. And how unfair that would have been, part of the reason they lost, to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free. But they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if you did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D. And I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me. But I really didn't.
So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress.
We don't have to
Let's go to
discuss
Congress,
it
do
because she'd
What's
never be
that,
able to
Peter
get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't
Oh,
get
hold on. I'm going to NBCnews.com for the real time.
They taunted young people and a lot of other people that
Metal
had
Gear
loans.
3.
They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. Well, wonderful. Let's go to Congress, do it. But the fact is that for years they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government. And we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And
Chris,
now
turn your
you have a
sensitivity
vote
down.
Turn it down.
on abortion.
Vice President Harris, want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade.
Chris,
And
turn it down.
as you
could have just said
rightly
yes.
mentioned,
What?
nowhere in
Turn it down a
America
little.
Turn your
is a woman
It's
echoing onto
carrying
our
a pregnancy to term
Turn what
and,
down?
and asking
Your
for
volume.
an
Your
abortion. That is not
sensitivity.
happening. It's insulting
Where's the
to the
volume
women
on
of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's
The
abortion
volume on my...
laws.
Hold on.
Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people,
How do I do that?
working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can
It is what
barely
it is. I'll
afford
just turn you down.
childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers, to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body. And that is why in every state where this issue has
every
been
time
on
she's
the
asked the
ballot, in
question,
red
it's
and
like,
blue states
imagine
both,
this
the
random
people of
person
America have
having to
voted for
go
freedom.
through this ordeal.
Excuse me, I have to respond.
I swear to
Another
God.
lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing, you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month? Okay, would you do that?
Who is on the phone?
Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you
That's
answer
the
the question?
problem.
Would you
Because
veto?
under Roe v.
Answer
Wade,
the question, would you veto?
you could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the former governor of Virginia.
You could do it probably after birth if you asked nicely and slid a 20 into the doctor's pocket.
Thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans.
I tried to do that with Don Jr. It didn't work.
Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act?
That is also the long-term
solution. Anything differently from President Biden
or we can build houses
so
and
I'm
jobs
the
and
only
stuff
person
for
on
them
this
here,
stage who has
that's a short-term
prosecuted
solution.
transnational criminal organizations
We already
for the
have
trafficking
those.
of guns, drugs,
Yeah, well,
and
we need
human
more
beings.
for our own people too.
And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border
None of these people are based. I'm voting for the brainworm.
Exactly.
And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States.
Now she's affecting my street.
No, the fentanyl.
Affected
I
by the
want
surge
fent.
of fentanyl
I
in our
want
country.
fent.
Fentanyl is so juicy and
more
crispy. It's
resources to
delicious. You
allow
should
us
try
to
it.
prosecute
Why would you
transnational
want to
criminal
stop it?
organizations
You
for
have never
trafficking
done
in guns,
fentanyl
drugs,
in your
and human
life.
beings. But you know what happened to that
If he
bill?
comes out and says,
Donald
I
Trump
love
got on the
fentanyl,
phone,
I'm voting
called
Trump.
up some folks in Congress and said, kill
I
the bill.
will.
And you know
I will
why?
register to vote
Because
and
he
actually
preferred to
vote.
run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand,
I love
this
fentanyl.
I
comes
love
at a
fentanyl.
time
Yeah, we both did it at the same
people
time.
of our country actually need a
The
leader
fentanyl
who
isn't
engages
that
in
bad. In fact, it's
solutions,
quite
who
good. I've
actually
heard.
addresses
It's a
the
great
problems
source of
at
income
hand.
for our
But what
country.
we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something.
That
He's
is
gonna talk
literally
about
what you're
immigration a lot
doing.
tonight,
You
even
are
when it's not
running
the
on these
subject that is
problems
being
instead.
raised. And I'm
That's
going to
what
actually
all
do something
people do.
really unusual, and I'm
But
going
he's
to
doing it
invite
especially
you
'cause he's a
to
populist.
attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters.
I've seen
like
some of his
Hannibal Lecter.
rallies. He just
He
talks
He is
about whatever.
just incoherent
Windmills
in your
cause cancer.
rambles.
He just
And
talks
what you
about
will also
whatever.
notice
It's like
is that
it's like
people
you're
start
talking
leaving
with
his
your uncle.
rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will
There's
tell you,
no
the one thing
set
you will
topic
not
he
hear him
gets
talk
in and
about
starts
is
talking
you.
about anything.
You will
It's
not
like
hear him
talking to
talk about
Luke.
your needs, your dreams, and your desires.
You
And
know,
I'll tell
the
you,
shower
I believe you
pressure
deserve
in my
a
hotel
president who
room.
actually puts
It's not
you
as good.
first.
It was
And I
better
pledge to
under
you that I
being
will.
Vice President Harris,
Tommy
on that
Kamala.
point, I want to get your
Well, I
response.
would like to
Tommy
respond.
Kamala
Why did
affecting
you
my
try to kill
water.
that bill, and successfully so, that would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border?
First, let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go.
What?
And the
Oh
people
my
that do
God,
go,
is
she's
he gonna
busing
do
them in
this?
and paying them to be there. And
At least
then
people show up,
showing them in a
Tommy.
different light.
He's actually gonna do
she
my
can't talk
rally's
about that.
bigger than
People don't
yours.
leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most
I have the
incredible
biggest
rallies in the
rallies.
history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation, and it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. what they have done to our country by allowing these
Can we
millions
cut him
and
off,
millions
chat?
of people to come into our country, and look at what's
He's
happening.
looking
Jack,
directly in the
cut off
camera.
the
I don't.
The
He's
United
not
States.
debating
A lot of towns
anymore.
don't want to talk. Not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs.
Is he saying that if he doesn't win, he's going to start World War III?
They're eating the cats. They're eating
17 Venezuelans are going to eat the family cat.
They're eating. Oh my
in
God!
our country, and it's a shame. As far as
They're eating the
rallies
dogs.
are concerned, as
They're
far as
eating the
the reason they
cats. They're
go is
eating
they
the
like what
dogs.
I say. They want to
They're
bring
eating
our
the
country back.
fucking
They want to make
hamsters.
America great again. It's a very simple phrase: make America great again. She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this
swear
country
to God,
doesn't
if
have a
it-
chance
if
of
it entails
success.
in
Not only
Ohio, I'm
success,
actually starting
will end
a
up
civil
being
war.
Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up
I was
Springfield,
full-screening it.
Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well,
All
I've seen
this-
people on television.
Let me just say here, this is
The people on television say
clear-
my dog was taken and
The people on
used for
television,
food.
they
So
tell me that
maybe he
the
said
people
that,
on
and maybe
television.
That's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
But the
television.
people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying their
manager.
dog was eaten by
Love you.
the people that went
Right.
there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice
We'll
President,
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
Aren't there like 12 Springfields in each?
You know, this is,
state?
I think, one of the reasons why in this election I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President
I have
Dick Cheney
200
and
former war
Congressmember
criminals
Liz
endorsing
Cheney.
me.
And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff,
Why is she bragging
general,
about-
She's trying to
has
reach
said
over
he
the
is
aisle.
the
She's being
Constitution of the
bipartisan.
United
Shut up.
States. His
The
former
only thing
national
Dick
security
Cheney did
advisor
was
has said
shoot
he is
someone
dangerous
and
and
get away with
unfit.
it.
That's
The
base.
That's what
former
he did.
Secretary
That's
of
base.
Defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive another Trump
I feel like her
term.
whole
And
Yeah,
when we
Curious.
listen to
Vote
this
for
kind
me.
of
This
rhetoric,
guy's evil.
when the issues that affect the American people
She's not
are
wrong.
not being
Vote
addressed,
for
Vote
me.
for
I'll
me.
get
Choice
free
is clear in
Fry
this
Fridays.
election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond.
Yeah. Thank you, because when I hear that,
I will give
see, I'm a
every
different
U.S.
kind of
citizen a
person.
free donkey.
I fired most of those people, not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job.
Did they just change the lighting to make it more atmospheric, or is it just me?
Having to do with Afghanistan
Possibly.
and the Taliban and the 13
need to
people
add,
whose were
like
just
some
killed,
10
viciously and violently
reality
killed, and I
TV
got to know the
Where
parents
did
and
the
the family.
Taliban come from?
They didn't fire. They should have fired all
Afghanistan?
those generals, all those top
Shut-
people,
Dick
because that
Cheney.
was one of the most incompetently handled situations.
Dick
anybody
Cheney was in
has
the
ever
Taliban.
seen.
Hold on,
So
hold on.
when
If you're
somebody
gonna
does a bad
fire
job,
generals
I fire
and
him.
top people
and you take a
because
guy
of
like
a-
Esper, he was no good. I
because of a
fired him.
fuck
So he
up,
writes
that's
a book.
not
Another
that
one writes a book
great.
because with me they can write
Yeah.
books. With nobody else can they? But they have done such a poor job.
you
and
messed
they
up. I'm
never
gonna fire you.
Anybody? Look at the economy. Look
That's
at the
literally-
inflation.
that's
Well,
literally
yeah,
just
it's the
part of
most
it.
important.
Economists,
It's
they
the
have same
most
people.
important job
That's a
in the
good
world.
way
Of
not
course
to
you're gonna
have
get
books
fired if
written
you
Okay,
fuck
about
it up.
but if it's
just to
one
finish,
mess up,
I
you
got
gotta,
more
like, 3
votes
strikes.
than any Republican in history by far.
3 strikes.
In fact, I got more votes than any
Yeah,
president.
you're allowed to bomb
in
3
history.
Middle
More
Eastern
votes than
countries
any sitting
before you're
president
fired.
in history.
Let me continue on
Didn't he
immigration.
lose
It was what you wanted to
the
talk about earlier.
popular
So
vote
let's get
to
back to
Hillary
your
Clinton?
deportation
Question mark?
proposal that
Yes.
the vice president
I mean,
has reacted to as
technically,
well.
almost
President
every
Trump, you called
president
this
has
the
the
largest
highest
domestic deportation
voting of
operation in
sitting
the history of our
presidents in
country. You
U.S.
say you would use
history.
the National Guard.
Also,
you say
it was
things get out of
Obama
control.
Population
No
thing
problem
going
using the
on.
U.S.
With local
military.
police, yes.
You also
In
said
the
you
modern,
would use local
like,
police.
post-2000s.
How would you
Obama.
deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah. It is much higher because of them. They allowed
Yeah.
criminals,
What?
millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country, and they're now in the United States and told
Why are you yelling?
by their countries like
are right in
Venezuela,
front of the microphone.
don't
Why
ever
are
come
you
back
yelling?
or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why?
Venezuela's
because
the
they've
best.
taken their criminals off the street.
So how is he
and
going
they've given them to
to deal with
her
the?
to put into
How
our
is he going to deal with the
country.
root line
Venezuela-
issues
This
of the
will be one
nations
of
they're
the
coming from
greatest
being
mistakes
shit?
in history for them to allow.
Here's what we
Obama.
do,
They
right?
probably
We
did
change
it
the
'cause they
currency
think
into
they're gonna
chocolate.
get votes,
We get Oompa
but it's not
Loompas.
worth
Bam,
it.
fixed.
Because
Okay, I think
they're
we're
destroying the
ASMing here.
fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country.
He is
Millions of
Nicolas
people
Maduro in a
living
mask.
all over the world. Crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here
What?
is up and through the roof, despite their fraudulent statements that they made. Crime in this
I don't
country
think crime is down
through
in
the roof.
Ukraine.
Yeah, I don't think crime is down in the
Israel.
entire of the world except
And
for
it's
the
happening at
U.S.
levels
I
that
don't think
nobody
that's
thought
true.
possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But
Yeah.
The FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud, just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I
Can
think
I
this is
source?
rich.
Question?
Coming from someone who has been prosecuted for
The FBI
national
is
security
automatically
crimes,
evil. That's my
economic
source.
crimes, election
they
interference,
conduct the census.
has been found liable for
That's why they're
sexual
evil.
assault, and his next
Okay.
big court appearance
What?
is in November at his
Did I
own
miss
criminal
something? Sexual
sentencing.
assault?
And let's
Yeah.
be clear.
Roma Daniels?
Where each
He got
person
sued.
stands on the issue
Wait,
of what
actually?
is important about
When?
respect for the rule of
That happened a
law
while ago.
and respect for law
Yeah, that was a
enforcement.
while
The former
ago.
vice president called for
He's a
defunding
felon. He's
federal
legally a
law
felon.
enforcement, 45,000 agents. Get this.
Yeah, just
on the day
casually.
after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So
Yeah.
let's talk about what is important.
When I
in
try-
this
when I
race.
try to
It is
become the
important
president
that
and
we
I
move
leave with
forward,
34
that we
felonies.
turn the page on this same old tired
I may have
rhetoric.
gotten a bit too
34
silly.
felonies weren't because of his presidency. It's because he put a hooker as a business expense.
It's because he
Ah.
decided.
Plan for.
Yeah.
Address what we must do to support our small businesses.
That and
Address
he made like
bringing
the
down
worst
the price
business
of
decisions of his
groceries.
life.
But frankly, the American people are
My house is
exhausted
worth $1 billion,
with the same
but
old
it's
tired
worth like
playbook.
Vice President
$1.
Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent, and I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest of the
technically
appeal.
speaking,
And you saw that with the decision that came
was
down
against
just
their
recently from
political
the Supreme
opponent.
Court. I'm
But
winning
you're
most of them.
so-
But
you're
those are
everybody's
cases, it's
opponent,
called
bro.
weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was
Donald
involved
Trump
with the
can no
DOJ,
longer
Wait.
own a
Atlanta,
firearm
and
because he's a
Fani
registered
Willis,
felon.
to the Attorney General
Is he
of New York.
complaining about the
Eminem,
Democrats
no.
weaponizing the
Every one of
judicial
those
branch?
cases,
Hold on.
and then
See-
they say,
see,
oh,
Donald
he's a
Trump
criminal.
is made
They're the
ineligible
ones
to own a
that
firearm, and then he
made
gets
them
shot.
go after me. By the way,
Coincidence?
Joe
I think
Biden
not.
was
Yeah.
essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case?
Where was the good
They
guy
said,
and the
oh,
gun
that's
in
the
that
toughest of
situation?
them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're
President Trump-
fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme
Justice
and
Department,
understand the
not judicial
context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again.
This is true.
Understand, this is someone who has openly said
Joe
he
Biden
would
has the opportunity to
terminate,
do the
I'm quoting,
funniest thing
terminate
imaginable.
This
the
is also
Constitution
true.
of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies.
This is
Someone
also
who
true.
has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were
He's
back in the
smiling.
White House with no
He's looking at the
guardrails,
camera with that
because certainly
autistic
we know now
smolder.
the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him.
Now, Nate's a little kiss at us.
Yeah.
Vice President
stop
Harris.
A little kiss at us.
Lindsay,
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president,
Weaponized, please.
we got to
This is the
continue.
Oh
one
my
that
God, he's
weaponized,
trying to
not me.
interrupt.
She weaponized. I probably took a
They
bullet
turn-
to the head.
Did they
because
turn on
of
his mic or
the
not?
Things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy.
he interrupted
They're
the mods. They
threat
just didn't turn on
to
his mic.
democracy with a
President
fake
Trump.
Russia investigation.
We do have a lot to get
That
went
was
nowhere.
found
We have a lot to
true.
get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris,
Literally,
in
the
last
Senate
run for president,
ruled
you said
like
you wanted to ban
whatever.
fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So
It's because my PR
values have not
person
changed, and I'm
confronted me
gonna
on Tuesday
discuss every
that this is not
point,
electable.
At least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States.
Because
and in
time
fact,
changes
I was
and
the
I need
tie-breaking
I need to
vote on
change
the
with the
Inflation
times.
Reduction
Boom, there you
Act,
go.
which opened new leases.
Because
for
she wants to
fracking.
steal voters.
My position is that we have got to
Her
invest
PR person,
in
there's this thing
diverse
called the
sources of
undecided
energy so we
majority.
reduce our reliance on
What are
foreign
they?
oil. We have
They're
had
undecided,
the
so you could just
largest
appeal to them.
increase in
Do they
domestic
like
oil
socialism?
production in history.
No.
Because of an
Oh.
approach that recognizes that we
You know,
cannot
I want a
over-rely on
president
foreign
who, I
oil.
want someone who will just
As
like
it
go
relates
out
to
and
my
be
values,
like,
let me
hey
tell you,
guys,
I grew
I
up
was
a
wrong.
middle-class kid raised by a
I messed
hardworking
up.
mother.
Here's
who
what I
worked and
should
saved
do.
and
I'm
was
gonna
able
do
to
better
buy
in the
our
future.
first home when I was a
I would do
teenager.
that. I want
The
to
values
bring back the
bring to
FDR like
importance
radio
of home
chats.
ownership, knowing not everybody got handed
got the
$400 million
smartest-
on a silver platter and
He's
then
got
filed
such a
bankruptcy
funny-
6 times, is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting
that to do
women
with
and children
anything?
from
Calm
violent
along.
crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that
Trump,
is about
like
lifting
Trump
people
supporters are
up
split on his
and not
performance
beating
so far.
people down.
He's been doing pretty bad, in my opinion.
The true measure of the leader
She didn't even get
is
to
the
say anything.
leader
You just
who actually
immediately started
understands
talking.
that strength is not in beating people down.
They,
it's
they
in
never,
lifting
I don't think
people
he
up.
even turned on his
I
mic. He
intend
just
to
started
be that
screaming.
president.
President Trump, your
Well,
response?
first of all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens.
Bro, if he
and
wants
a
to win,
great
he needs
father,
to
and
stop
I learned a
interrupting
lot
the
from him,
mediator.
But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars. Many, many billions.
Small loan of $1
And when
million
people see it, they
in the
are even
1970s.
surprised.
What is
So
that
we don't have
adjusted
to
for
talk about
inflation?
that. Fracking? She's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police. She's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff.
Yeah, a former
Very
police
wrongly,
officer or
very
prosecutor
horribly, and
will
everybody's
defund the
laughing
police.
at it,
I believe
okay?
this.
They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12
Defund-
and probably
I-
14
We know where the drill
different
is.
policies. Like,
It's kinda
she was
stupid,
big on
I
defund
think.
the police.
I don't-
In Minnesota, she went
It's
out.
like the
wait a minute,
Vic
I'm
3 no
talking now.
police
If you don't mind,
edict. You
please.
just never click it.
Does that sound familiar? She went out.
I don't really see.
She went out.
If we defund the police, I feel like things will just.
Hey,
wanted to let
wait,
criminals
wait,
that killed
wait a
people,
minute.
that burned
That's
down
like three
Minneapolis.
things in one.
She went out and raised money to get them out of
That's
jail. She did
transgender
things that nobody would ever
operations
think
on
of. Now she
illegal
wants to do
immigrants who are in-
Hey, let me get
transgender
the bits,
operations
Joe.
on illegal
And I'll be out
aliens.
your hair.
Listen,
Wait,
this is
what?
a radical left liberal.
What?
that would do this.
Transgender
She wants to
operations on
confiscate
immigrants in
guns.
prison.
And she's
Huh?
liberal
On
out
a
fracking
weird
in Pennsylvania.
Actually, I
She
have
won
some
the
information I need to
fracking
share.
in Pennsylvania will end on day one.
And it
Just to
is
finish one thing,
his
so
small
important
loan
in
of
my
$1 million
opinion.
that he keeps talking
So
about. That
I
was
got
given
the
to him
oil
by his
business
father
going
in
like nobody has ever done before.
1976.
They took when they
And
took over,
adjusted for inflation,
they got
that's
rid of it, started
$5
getting rid
billion.
of it, and the prices were going
Cool
up
this.
the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher because you're talking about
Is that a
3.5
fucking
years
JoJo
ago.
reference?
They
He
got
would have
it
been
up
higher?
to where I was because
Why
they had
are
no
you
choice
dressed up
because
all
the
sexy
prices
like?
of energy were
Are you on a call with
quadrupling
Oliver?
and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back
Then
to Trump.
why?
But if she won the election,
Luke,
the
shut
day
up.
after
We're on
that
a.
election,
We're live.
Okay.
they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead, fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar. When they need a whole desert to get some.
Wait, we're
energy
gonna
to
kill.
come
We're gonna
out.
kill
You ever see a solar
fossil
plant?
and
By the
whatnot.
way,
That's
I'm a
okay
big
with
fan of
me.
solar.
We'll go to
But they
solar.
take
That's based.
400, 500 acres of
Utopia.
Don't threaten me with a good time.
Yeah, don't threaten me with a good time. What?
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other
He did
side
not answer the question.
Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer.
Does he regret
There
his
will be
actions?
debates, audience
It's a
participation.
disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar, remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've
over
done.
the world.
What about those people? What are they going to be prosecuted?
How did he get from
people from
January
countries all over
6th
the world, not just South America.
immigration?
They're coming in
Yeah,
from
why does he keep coming back to immigration?
Yeah, what are they, David? Because this is definitely your level of expertise. Tell me, David. You have all the answers, don't you, David?
One of the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted. Or in Seattle. They went into Seattle. They took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask you.
You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question
Nancy
as we move
Pelosi.
forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
Thank you.
Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I
Huh?
showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again,
Chris,
it wasn't
turn
done
your
by me. It was done
shit
by
down.
others. I said, I'd like to give
I
you
don't know how.
10,000 National Guard or soldiers.
Figure it out.
They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi.
I don't
was
think they understand how
responsible. She didn't
questions
do her
work.
job.
The question was about you as
Well, they're
president, not
politicians.
about former Speaker Pelosi.
True.
But I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason.
Just another
But
Tuesday.
this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where
Yes.
there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side.
Very true.
Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the president said, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page.
Just stand one more time.
And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the future.
That has nothing to do with. That does not correlate with
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different
And
term.
I feel like
it was a
you
term
don't even believe
that
that.
related to energy because you
You'd have to
destroyed
save
our
your
energy
ass.
business. That was where Bloodbath was. Also, one Charlottesville. That story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this, you talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The President of the United States, you'll get him out of bed, you'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you'll say, come on down to the office, let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times.
I don't know how you work
in.
that back to immigrants.
Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020
God,
election,
you did. I lost the plot. It was like January 26th, immigrants suddenly.
In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say
sarcastically. You
But
know
those-
that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look.
It
There's
was
so much
just a
proof.
prank,
All you have to
bro.
do is look
It was
at
just
it,
a meme,
and they should
a
have sent
joke.
it back
It
to the
sounded like-
legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about it. An election is fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls, and we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them Republican.
No judge looked at it.
And said
they said
no
we didn't have standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality.
You stop
Can you
interrupting the
imagine a
mediator?
system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you
Doesn't
look at
have
the
standing.
facts,
That
and I'd
means
love
yes,
to
it doesn't
you
have
do a
any
special
standing
on
within
it.
the Constitution.
I'll show
or
you
anything.
Georgia.
It won't
and
go
I'll
to
show
court.
you
It means
Wisconsin, and I'll
means
show you
a court cannot
Pennsylvania, and I'll
legally
show you- we have so
rule in
many
this because it's
facts
a
and
nothing
statistics.
burger.
But
Yeah,
you know what?
lol.
That doesn't matter because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker, so he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden
Does
and
he
yourself.
claim to be the president or
but I
what
do want to
now?
ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President
I don't think he does.
about
All
this
he
upcoming
says is that
election,
it was
just weeks
stolen.
away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that
I'd like to point something
I
out.
have traveled the world as vice president of the
Looking
United
into the
States.
camera like she's talking
And
to us.
world leaders are
while
laughing
Trump
at
just
Donald
looks at the
Trump.
mediator.
I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did in fact lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just tell you about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a tough person.
Viktor Orban,
smart.
Respected man.
Prime
Okay,
Minister of
buddy.
Hungary.
This is not the
said,
first
"Why
time
is
he's
the
brought
whole
up
world
Viktor
blowing
Orban
up? 3 years
in
ago
a
it wasn't.
debate.
Why is it blowing
Weirdly.
up? He said
Well,
because
not
fascists
debate,
wanted
like
Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way.
Hungary.
He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline.
China is
and Biden put it back on day one,
quivering
but
in their
he ended
boots
the
at the
XL
might of
pipeline. The XL pipeline in our
Nicholas
country, he
Horthy.
ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president, but when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But he got 14 million votes.
Someone's looking at him like, what are you even talking about
Well,
right
yeah,
now?
it's complete conjecture. Now he's just yapping.
She was the first one to leave because she failed, and now she's running. I don't understand it, but I'm okay with it because
your time is
I think
up.
we're going to do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages.
Oh, this is going to be spicy.
Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7,
That's
Hamas,
the second time she said
a
that.
terrorist organization,
I think we know how we got here.
slaughtered 1,200 Israelis, many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself.
Kamala Harris is an Israeli confirmed.
And how it does so matters. Because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you
And
all
Donald
is,
Trump's going to come out like, we're going to
I will
kill
always
them
give Israel
all.
the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security,
kill all the Arabs,
self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president,
Bro, Trump's gonna be like, not only will we kill all the Arabs, we'll kill all the Jews too. There, no more fighting.
I know Putin very well. He would have never, there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up. Far worse than people understand
Millions
what's
of
going on
people
over there.
dead in Russia.
But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole
hates both,
place
guys.
is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened.
Are we blowing people up? Where do I sign?
Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions.
Apparently Kamala
that I
wants
had.
to blow everybody
Iran
up,
had
so
no
she's
money
got my
for
vote.
Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres
Shut up
of
and take my
terror.
money.
And they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money.
Terror.
It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very
Terror.
well, actually. They had no money.
At what
for
point in this
terror.
debate did
They
Donald
were
Trump go from
broke.
Donald Trump
Now
to
they're a rich
Donnie
nation,
from Queens?
And now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's
I mean, he's
happening
from New York,
with the
so.
Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's
Yeah,
going
he's
on in the
from
Middle East.
Queens. What are
This
you
would have
talking
never
about?
happened.
He's literally
That's
Donnie
how
from
fast
Queens.
Donnie
that the
from
war
Queens.
With Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect,
Donnie
I'll get it
from
done
Queens.
before even
Yeah.
becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that
He
he
was
said
literally
when
just
Russia went
congratulating
into
Obama.
Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. And it is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why
Didn't Iran and
so
Russia
many
both
military leaders
endorse
who you have
Kamala
worked with
Harris?
have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we
One of them
understand
for
that
sure. I
we
think
have
both.
to have a
Both
president
of them.
who is not consistently weak and wrong on
Vice
national
President
security,
Harris.
including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it, because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in
Any
and kill
country that
Eastern
is not the
Pipeline
United States,
and
they
approve
suck.
the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany?
Did
and all
anyone
over
else
Europe?
just catch that?
Because they're weak
Yes, I
and
did.
they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way,
President
gets paid
Trump,
a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
But now we have an ad
I
break.
want this pull up pretty fast.
Oh, I was hoping it was.
The ABC News presidential debate will continue after this.
So thought?
Do not watch. I
Trump
mean,
pushes baseless claim about migrants eating pets.
I think Trump has done really bad today. Like, he has just been yapping.
Yeah. He literally did. Yeah, the whole thing with the dog is like they're eating the family dog. The dog's going missing. Donald Trump said that. And the moderator is like,
on,
there's no report.
What are our thoughts on Miss Harris' performance? Hey, that's cool. I like that as one of those.
Is there any in the House of Representatives?
Yes, there is.
Who?
There's one from Montana, like Zoe.
Oh.
Zoe or something. Not Zoe.
Come
Zoe.
on. You don't have a cup? That's a water bottle.
Yeah, filled with water.
Oh, okay.
He saw Trump. He saw Trump. He saw Trump double down on the pet eating fact check and just collapsed.
Not my test.
When did that happen?
Today, apparently.
Damn.
So is this what you do at night?
Didn't like a woman communist win the Mexican election?
I have no idea.
Well, you look good. You said you wanted Modius taken out.
Dilster, do some research on the Mexican president.
Ooh!
You do it.
I can't because I'm streaming.
Yeah, fair point.
Dilster, tell Modius to move. Dilster, tell my friend's dog to move.
A Claudia Sheinbaum is the one who won.
Is that is it she?
Yeah. Party Morena.
That was a bad idea.
Are they left wing? I can't remember.
National Regeneration Movement.
That could be good, could be bad. It teeters.
Left Wing Populist Party.
Okay.
Claudia Sheinbaum. That's a very un-Mexican name or un-Spanish.
That sounds like my last name.
Who won with 61% of the vote?
That's a pretty big majority. Sure. Well, I hope she's been doing good. I guess maybe not, considering the Senate just got stormed.
I don't know when this was. Hold on. 2nd of June. That's not when the Senate was stormed. It's when the election happened.
When was the Senate stormed? Was that today?
Yeah, it was either today or yesterday.
Dog pee like he's coming. Why does this dog pee like he's coming? What?
We are alive.
I'm alive too.
No, live.
Bro.
Top story live from Paris.
We're on an ad break.
We are here in Butler, Pennsylvania.
No, we're not.
Every week
They are.
It's your news playlist.
Yeah, we are.
Oh, we're coming back. 5 seconds.
Top story.
Coming back.
Channel doesn't have
Streaming
ads.
weeknights at 7 on NBC News Now. We're back
It
with
was
tonight's
that
debate
gamer.
between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump.
We're back,
When it ends
everybody.
in just a few minutes, join us for an analysis of tonight's key moments. Our team will break down how it could shake up the final sprint to Election Day. For now,
Shut
let's
up.
go back to the debate live in Philadelphia.
Why are you telling the
Live from
newscasters
National
to shut up?
Constitution Center
I
in
wanna watch the
Philadelphia,
debate.
Pennsylvania.
Well, they're
Here
coming.
again, David
Wait.
Muir
What?
and Lindsay Davis.
What?
Welcome back to this
I'm
historic
watching the
ABC News
dog.
presidential debate tonight. We're going to continue here, and I want to turn to the war in Ukraine. We're now
Oh, you want me to leave?
into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being uselessly, people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe, like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin. Hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled.
I fell asleep on FaceTime with Vladimir Putin every night when I was president.
President-elect. And what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left. I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's... Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
Just to clarify
They threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president that doesn't know he's alive.
Your time is up. Just to clarify on the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war? Yes or no?
He's probably asleep right now.
To get this war finished and just get it done. Negotiate a deal, because we have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important
I'm sorry, I can't watch this anymore. I'm leaving.
Against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now.
Why does Donald Trump have that grin on his face? Like,
because Putin's
look at this guy.
Is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO
like he's mogging the camera.
Are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour.
Nobody, the
I wanted to
Polish who
respond to
have been
something you said
fooled,
earlier,
who've been
and
fooled twice,
please,
and they're not
I'll
taking
give you
the
a
third time.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow much happier than he is right now. But eventually, you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that.
He's already sitting in Moscow,
and
though.
Eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe...
He said he'd be sitting in Moscow a lot happier, which I don't know how, but...
Something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was
Kamala told him to invade Ukraine.
They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strong men instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief. And the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Stoltenberg said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen, he's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you.
President
Otherwise,
Trump.
we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
I blame Joe Biden for Afghanistan. He created the nation. He was there when it started.
4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are.
Forever war is
Donald
over?
Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of
Yeah,
the
it
weakest
ended like
deals
like
you
you know
can
when like
imagine.
a
He calls
bomb
himself a
exploded
deal
in an
maker.
airport and a bunch
Even
of
his
soldiers
national
died.
security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government.
Ah, so she's dodging this
He negotiated
question.
directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban.
This isn't the question. She asked.
Taliban getting 5,000
Asked if she had any regret
Taliban
or
terrorists
any part in
released. And get this,
in the disastrous withdrawal, and she probably did. That's probably why she isn't
invited
answering.
the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders.
Farewell.
And this
Farewell.
former president, as president, invited them
Harris do better.
Camp David,
She was
because
so close to calling him the N-word.
appreciate the role and responsibility
Honestly,
of the
I would vote
president
for
of the
someone
United
if they
States
just straight up national
to be
television turned to the
commander-in-chief
other
with a
candidate.
level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently
like,
disparaged and
just
demeaned
imagine you're
members
sitting
of our
there
military,
watching, everything's
fallen
respectful,
soldiers,
and suddenly the
and
person
work
who
that
like
we
isn't
must do to
yelling turns over
uphold
and
the
just
strength
yells a racial
and
slur
the
at the other one.
respect of the United States of America around
Personally,
the
I
world.
think
President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations with the Taliban.
I would be that single vote.
I would commend her bravery.
Because
the Taliban was killing
even though
our
that's
soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers.
It would be. It's going to be laughed about in like 5 years.
Because the Taliban was doing the killing.
and
That's
see-
the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, you know, they
Right.
deal
You
with
got
the
a
wrong
good
people
point
all the
there.
time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said,
Didn't
"Why
we
do you
send a
me
missile
picture
that
of my house?" I
explodes
said, "You're gonna have
knives
to
through his
figure that
window?
out, Abdul." And for 18 months, we had nobody
something
killed.
we do.
We did have an agreement negotiated
Because we
by Mike
did.
Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, it was we were getting out.
It was
We would've
like-
been out
it was
faster
like
than
a
ever.
top
We wouldn't have lost the
ISIS.
soldiers. We wouldn't have
It was
left
like a top
many Americans
ISIS
behind.
leader.
We wouldn't have left.
We killed
we
him
wouldn't
by
have left
sending a missile that explodes
$85
knives
billion
everywhere.
worth of brand new, beautiful
Why is
military
We sent it
equipment
through his
behind.
window.
And just to finish,
Yapping about
they
making a good
blew
trade
it.
deal with this guy.
The agreement said you have to do this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move
and
on.
these people did the worst withdrawal, and in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, "I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black." I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm asking.
I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay.
Yeah.
That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants
That
to be
was a
president
tragedy
who
of an
has
answer.
consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And
Oh
let's
yeah, I
remember
I googled it,
how
and there's a
Donald Trump
missile
started.
called the
He was
Flying
a-
Ginsu, and when the missile
land,
makes
he owned
contact,
land,
it
he
explodes,
owned
and it
buildings,
explodes
and
knives
he was
everywhere.
investigated because he refused to rent
It cost $50,000, and it's produced by Lockheed
Let's remember,
Martin.
this is the same individual
Then I can't hear
who
it.
took out a full-page
And we
ad
killed,
in the New York
and we
Times
killed one of the
calling for
leading
the
members of Al
execution
Qaeda with it.
of 5
There's
young
people trying to
black
hide
and
us.
Latino
Yeah, but there's still
boys
people
who
trying to
were
sleep.
innocent,
Khalil's
the
sleeping
Central Park
outside.
5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me Can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your third time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years.
They come up with stuff of whatever the hell she just said.
Agreed with me on the Central Park Five. They admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy.
They've never even seen a good economy.
She is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says.
She is Biden.
She is Biden.
She is a geriatric man, and right before our eyes.
Because inflation has
and I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for your middling kids.
Thank you. Your time is up.
She is Biden. He leans over for a kiss.
Briefly.
Yeah.
Clearly,
he is
I'm
Biden.
not Joe Biden.
She is Biden.
And I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country. One who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of all.
Okay, she's getting too happily.
The American people.
She's getting too happy for me to be comfortable with her message.
We can do to strengthen
What?
our small
Shut up.
businesses, which is why I have a plan.
I would
Let's
rather
talk
have a
about
happy
our
person
plans
than
and
whatever Trump is.
Yeah, I'm like positive, but that's like creepy happy.
to give startup
Yeah, she's like
businesses
jerking herself off a little too
$50,000
hard.
tax deduction.
Yeah.
To pursue
You
their
like bring it
ambitions,
down
their
a notch.
innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development.
Oh
I have
shit,
a
it's only
plan
for the first
that is
year?
about
Oh,
allowing
never mind. I
people to
thought
be
it was a
able to
great
pursue
deal. It's a
what
shit
has been
deal.
fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation I believe, David.
After
that
year
people
one,
really
you're
want
on your
tonight,
own, kid.
as opposed to a conversation that is constantly
I thought,
about
because you can claim
belittling
kids on your taxes
and
till they're
name-calling.
18. I thought she
You
meant
can.
every
Turn
year of
the
those
page.
18
Vice
years,
President
there's
Harris.
a $6,000
That's how we
rebate.
treat kids
She
just
said,
generally. Is
President Trump.
you're 18 now? Okay, you're on your own.
To defund the police. She has a plan
You're
to
18, you
confiscate
can't drink, but you
everybody's
can't go
guns.
die of
She
fluoridation.
has a plan to not allow fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay.
That's what her plan is until just recently.
I just need
Lindsay,
to
go ahead.
respond because
Trump,
the
President
former
Trump.
president has
No,
said
I'm
something
sorry.
twice that I need to respond.
I think they're in an ASMBC right now.
Yeah.
President Trump, this is
Yeah.
now your third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it. But remember this. I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, never going to be great, or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones too, and so do they. They have really bad ones.
I had so many good people in my administration. Every 5 seconds, I fired my cabinet secretaries and replaced them with something else.
Or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if we come
Did you
up
just
with
say
something,
thug it
I
out
would
and
only
trust
change
the
it if we come
process?
up
Pretty
with
much.
something that's better and
Yeah,
less
the
expensive.
concepts of a plan, but I don't have a plan. I'm not the president yet.
We have
But
yeah, you just
to
said
do that.
thug it out and
And you'll
trust
be
the
hearing about
process.
it
That's
in
what the
not too
campaign is
distant
for.
future.
Vice President Harris,
Yeah.
in 2017,
You're
you
supposed to have the
Bernie
plan.
Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance
Trust
and
me,
create a
guys.
government-run
I got
healthcare
it.
system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private health care
can I
options.
get
But
40 pieces
what
of
we need to do
bastard
is
fries?
maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a
What'd you
previous
say?
point that the
I have to get a
former
7th
president has
piece
made.
of our
I've made very
democracy
clear
is
my
fucked.
position on fracking, and then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away, so stop with the continuous lying about this stuff.
Thank you.
As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being, you don't like him, you said, at the time because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president, and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it, pass this prologue in terms of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a lot of...
She made a mistake. At number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't
He's not
improve
wrong. We can do
private
better,
insurance
but not
for
under
people,
you.
private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to give.
President
People
Trump.
are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular
You said
younger
President
voters,
Trump,
and that's
please
climate
shut
change.
up.
President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water. Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential threat. The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president has said that climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as Vice President over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels.
Oh, you mean his
we
nose?
have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been Vice President. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement
Not to
of
play
the
devil's
United Auto
advocate
Workers
here,
and
but I
Sean
feel like
Fain,
everywhere
who
lost
also
jobs
know
because of
that part
COVID.
building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up.
When did General Motors lay a fat egg? Wasn't that like in the Biden or Trump presidency?
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month.
It exploded.
It's going. They're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other
Michigan
place.
mentioned.
What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse.
As a Michigander, Audrey,
go
you should
after
want
people because supposedly China
Trump
paid
to
him
shut
millions
down
of
the
dollars. He's afraid to
Mexican-China
do it.
trade route.
Between
This
him and
is
China,
true.
Like
they
God
get
in
all this money
Michigan.
from
I
Ukraine.
do want
They get
them
all this
damn
money
Mexican
from all of
and
these
Chinese
different
jobs
countries,
back.
and then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this
The
one?
government don't take our job.
Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife?
No, I just understand that you need better incentives and whatnot, and the answer is
This is a
deport
crooked
Mexicans.
administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
Donald Trump said one good thing about Michigan. Do you want to?
Historic night. This
Do you want?
Presidential debate from Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
Harris needs to say something good about Michigan, or we might be cooked, boys. I might be
The ABC News presidential debate will continue after this.
What?
Audrey's voting Republican. Confirmed.
How long is this debate going to be? I'm getting tired.
They literally said closing statements after this commercial break.
Okay, good.
Voting is for terrorists.
Can't wait to be a terrorist.
Make sure. I think it's like October 15th when they close the registration.
I won't be 18 by then. I'll be 18 on January, so I have to wait for the next election.
I have already registered to vote.
Oh.
Yeah, I
I'll
can't vote in this election, but I'll get him in the next one.
I'll just vote illegally by mail-in ballot, like Trump says it's so easy to do.
That's true. I should try to do that. I should try to
Real.
I should try to order one
Become
of
a-
the mail-in ballots.
Become a political talking point.
Yeah, real. I should. Well, I already am. To be fair, I'm one of
Oh,
those.
let's add another
I was
one.
making a funny joke, but I'm on stream.
I'm one of them transgenders.
So just become another one.
Fair.
You were Fox News' worst nightmare.
I can talk quiet.
True. I am Fox News' like blue-haired leftist mail-in ballot trans-mutilating children. I don't do that last bit, but
Republican Representative Joe Wilson, South Carolina, in hospital. He saw Trump double down on the immigrants eating dogs, and he just passed out right there.
You're right.
I hope he's doing okay.
That was some strange, unexpected compassion from you, Audrey. I'm proud.
Yeah, you can't vote for all the time.
Yeah.
Bro, what is with the smooth jazz?
True.
It's an ad break.
Oh,
Gotta
I
have
just realized why it's Audrey. I realized why it's taking so long. It's because it's a 90-minute debate, but there are 2 7-minute ad breaks.
I hate companies. I hate capitalism. Why can't we just?
No, actually, we're on the internet, so we don't see the ads, so we just get to see the same 5 news articles repeated.
Why can't I?
Because we're
we
not
don't
on
realize, but everybody else is like, "Do you hate Trump? Buy Kellogg's cereal."
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we just get to see the same news graphics because they can't show the ads on here.
Yeah, because we're watching TV. Is that tampons?
Yeah, our toxic
Tampons
metals
are
and
actually really
tampons.
bad.
The FDA said there's toxic metal in tampons.
You know, I love the fact that we're all slowly poisoning ourselves. Like,
I mean, there's a
I
bunch
love
of
Red
shit
Ford.
and everything.
Like,
aren't there microplastics in my balls or something?
Yeah,
there's microplastics in all of our blood.
That every time I
Okay, but it's the fact that women have to use tampons every day.
Well, I use my balls every day.
Would you listen? I'm gonna fucking choke you. Like, this is what I'm talking about. Shut your mouth. Listen.
Kill.
Yes, random woman.
Kill the random woman who's on stream. We don't want random people.
Bro.
I'm not random. Suck my dick. Anywho.
Alright. And muted.
Okay, you can unmute him now.
Okay. Is not even letting me hold up.
She's having technical difficulties. Hold on. Trump pushes baseless claim about immigrants eating the pets. That was still the wildest thing said tonight.
That was still the wildest thing. Okay, we're back.
And the fact after the news reporters that there's been no reports and no one's even said that before.
How hard is it to see it like
And he just
You
doubled
know,
down.
oh, it is back on.
is real.
Let's break down what we know and then
5
the big questions
seconds.
still outstanding.
News for the generation of now is NBC
Tell me
News
after.
Now.
I'm sorry. This is
Wait,
I told.
It doesn't matter because men don't have periods.
Please join us for analysis of tonight's key moments.
I've kissed blood before.
As we enter the
so
final
much
sprint
different.
today, we'll go back to the debate and closing statements.
If men had periods
Live
too
from the
and men
National
could use
Constitution
tampons,
Center in
then
Philadelphia,
it would be
Pennsylvania.
a whole
Here
thing.
again,
Like, oh my God,
David Muir
don't use
and Lindsay
tampons. Like,
Davis.
everybody would be aware
Welcome
about
back
it. It would be
tonight.
on
The
the
time has
news
come
and
for
they would have
closing
articles
statements,
about
and
it. But
Vice
nobody really
President
gives a
Harris, we
shit
begin
because
with
it's about women.
So I think you've heard tonight two very
Say
different
something
visions
smart.
for our
I
country.
swear to God.
One that is
Now we're on
focused
the
on the
closing
future,
statements.
and the other that is focused on the past,
Listen to your
and an
opinion.
attempt to take us backward. But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having
Also,
a
Audrey,
plan,
you know who I am.
understanding the aspirations, the
Possibly.
dreams, the hopes, the ambition
You don't remember
of the
me?
American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy,
I'm Jada.
investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors.
I'm trying to listen
what
to
we can do
Kamala
that is
Harris.
about giving hardworking
I'm sorry
folks
what
a
I
break
said. I
and
didn't
bringing
know who
down the
was
cost of
speaking, and I
living.
was trying to talk to
I
him, and he wasn't
believe
listening.
in what we can
I
do
hate when he does
together.
that.
That
I'm the
is about
greatest listener.
sustaining America's standing
The
in the
guys who
world
listen.
and ensuring that we have the
This is what I'm
respect
talking
that we
about.
so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will
She just
protect
said
our
she wants to
fundamental
kill
rights and
people.
freedoms,
She
killed-
including
she
the
said
right of a
kill 'em
woman to
all.
make
I gotta
decisions
vote for her.
about her own
Yeah.
body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client,
For real, that's what
the
I
people.
thought she said.
And I'll tell you, as a
I
prosecutor,
was a
never
DA
asked
prostitute.
a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat?
Back
The
in
only
my
thing I
days, they
ever
called
asked
me
them,
Funk Bunny.
are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president
Like
for
Obama.
all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next
Is she
10
just
and
Obama with
20
tits?
years to build back up
Bro,
our country by
fuckable
investing
Obama?
right now in
Yeah.
you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump.
Anybody is fuckable.
So
if
she
you got
just
the balls
started
for
by
it.
saying she's going to do this, she's
The
going to do
And the
that,
death.
she's
Someone
going to
quote
do all
that.
these
Try hard
wonderful
enough.
things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border.
That's a good point.
They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do,
Audrey.
but you haven't done it, and you
What?
won't do it because you believe in
Love you a
things that
lot.
the
You know
American
that.
people don't believe in. You believe
Okay,
in
thanks.
things like we're not going to frack. We're not going to take fossil fuel. We're not going to do
Yeah,
things that are
sales.
going to make this country strong, whether you like it or
I was just
not.
saying it 'cause it's
Germany
genuinely
tried
true.
that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our
genuinely
country
like to
for the
braid
sake of
Audrey's
bad
hair.
vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it?
I don't have
We're
a lot of
failing
female
nation.
friends, so when I have
We're a
female
nation
friends,
that's
I'm very
in
happy.
serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughing.
Is that
I know
wrong?
the leaders very well. They're coming
It's
to see
not
me.
wrong. I just
They
don't feel
call
like this
me.
is the
We're
time.
laughed at all
Because we're
over the world. They
broadcasting
don't understand
live.
what happened to us as a nation. We're
Did
not
you
a
not know
leader.
that?
No.
We don't have
Oh,
any
yeah,
Luke,
idea
did you
what's
not
going
communicate
on.
that to
We
her?
have wars going on in the Middle
he
East.
didn't.
We
I
have
did.
wars
I told
going
her I was on a
with
podcast.
You
Russia
didn't tell
and
me you were on
Ukraine.
podcast.
We're going to end up
You
in
said
a
you were
third world
commentating on
war, and it'll
something.
be a war
Live
Oh
on a
my.
because
podcast.
of
You
nuclear
didn't say it
weapons,
was
the
live.
power of
You didn't say
weaponry.
it was on a
I
podcast. You just said you
rebuilt
were
our
commentating on
entire
this video.
military. She gave a lot of it
Luke.
Well, it's
away
live.
to the Taliban. She
And on a
gave it to
podcast.
Okay,
Afghanistan.
thank you for
What
not
these
telling me
people
that's live
have
and on
done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're
my God, he
destroying our
keeps
country.
yapping
The
about
worst
this
president,
point.
the worst vice president in the history of our country.
Make sure to go
President
check
Trump,
Fido,
thank
and
you.
a
That is our
Guatemalan might have
ABC
eaten
News
him for
presidential
lunch.
debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching here
that-
in the U.S.
that
and
debate
all over
felt like
the
it
world,
went on
and from all of us
forever.
here at ABC News.
They all do.
They do. But
And welcome back to
I'm
NBC
gonna
News
shut
coverage
up,
of the debate.
man. I
Pick
forgot your name.
Yeah, turn off the feed.
Okay.
I don't care about NBC.
Trump did good. Nah, wait, no, hold on. Trump did really bad. Kamala did
He
pretty good.
doubled down.
Can you turn off the video so I can hear you guys?
I already. You gotta leave.
He's driving, I think.
I turned it off. I'm a pro. I'm the best texter and driver. I come from a long line. My great grandpa was texting and driving.
I believe it.
He was a genius. He invented it.
Yeah, but Biden did good.
Biden did good?
Yeah, Biden. Biden.
Actually, yeah, Biden did the best out of anybody at that debate.
Yeah.
Because he didn't show up.
He's probably sleeping in Florida.
Yeah.
Bro,
No.
Biden is having the time of his life being able to fuck off.
Biden in a woman's suit did the best, and Trump just yapped about
Come on.
Guatemalans the whole time.
Guatemalans eating family pets.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell he was on.
Yeah, I don't know why he brought it out, and when he got proven wrong, he doubled down.
Yeah, I don't know why he did that either. It's like you don't
On all the things to double down on. Why that?
Yeah, especially the thing that the moderator specifically pulls out physical evidence. It did not happen.
I feel okay, so Kamala, I feel like when you're like walking down the road and there's an obstacle, there's like, you know, a cat or there's like a crash in the road and you have to go around it. Kamala is turning around and she's just changing the destination. She's changing the subject of the question. She's not answering anything. And Trump is ramming straight into the wreck. He's turning this 3-car wreck into a 4-car wreck. He is.
I mean, real.
Okay, but one of those averts the crash, and one of those joins the crash. One of those
Well, yeah, but
is a good thing, and the other thing is a bad thing. Like,
but neither of them get to the destination that they're supposed to be at.
this is true, but
It's like
one is preferable
Like-
to the other.
I don't think you're gonna think that the one that's preferable is the same one that my demographic thinks is preferable.
I don't think crashing a car into the other cars is preferable, to be honest.
And when someone says, "Why did you crash the car?" He said, "I did not crash the car. Kamala crashed the car."
Kamala crashed the car.
Kamala forced my hand.
Kamala put the beer in my hand.
Kamala give me free beers for a communist party, and she tricked me.
Kamala threw the parking brake right when I was about to strategically dodge the car wreck.
Yeah, when I was about to parry the car, Kamala pushed my hand.
Alright, should I end the stream now?
I mean, let me say this beforehand. I feel like, of course, you think Trump did bad because you hate Trump. I think Trump did a great job of reinforcing his core audience. Because what he did was he just stored down the bullet, and he was like, "No, I'm right," which is what has made him famous and popular, is him just bold-faced being like, "Fuck you, I'm right."
I mean,
and that's his strategy.
He did batten down his base, but the whole point of debates is to broaden your debate.
Appeal to the median voter, and he's not appealing to the median voter very well in that debate. He's only appealing to his base, and that makes him look like a lunatic in the eyes of the mob.
That's not his strategy. He doesn't give a shit about, because he knows that he has the capability to win.
It doesn't matter.
He just gets back his base from 2016. That's his goal right now.
But his base from 2016 doesn't exist anymore. 2016 and 2024 are 8 years apart. There's been 8 years of growth and development.
Look, I'm not saying it's a smart idea. I'm just telling you what he's trying to do.
Well, yeah, but
I'm not saying it's smart.
I'm saying it's not going to work. In my opinion, my incredibly educated opinion, the genius I am.
Yeah, man, I don't think it's a very
educated opinion. I think that whoever's better at Muay Thai should be the president.
I don't think Muay Thai has any basis in American tradition, but you know what? Sure.
And Donald Trump chooses to double down on the worst points possible, and he just brings up random things. It's because it's like the whole thing about immigrants eating dogs. Like, did he forget his line right there? So he just like made something up.
So Dilster, as the titular median voter, how do you feel about that debate?
I feel like Kamala Harris definitely won over the median on that one. Well, I did feel like both of them definitely did do things that didn't look incredibly right to me as a median, as a representation of the median. But I feel like Kamala Harris came out not looking like a psycho.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, here's the question, you, the median voters that definitely watch our stream. I know we have a very influential podcast. Millions of
viewers.
Trillions of
viewers.
The thing you've got to think about, to me at least, is domestic policy isn't in the control of the president. Like, he can push his thumb on people, but really, like, every presidency, basically none of the domestic policy gets pushed through because it's dependent on so many bigger factors. The, what is it called? The opposite of domestic. Audrey, help me out with my vocabulary here.
Foreign? External?
Diplomacy?
Yeah, the foreign policy is what I'm really concerned about, because he's got a point. The Biden administration has really weak foreign policy. They tuck their tail between their legs and try to be like, negotiate with people, where I wish we would go back to where America would just swing its balls wherever it wants.
Okay,
and
but
fuck
he wants
it up if people didn't comply.
But he wants to swing our balls toward an authoritarian dictatorship alliance with, like, Russia and Viktor Orban, and that's no fucking good.
I think we should invade Russia through the Bering Strait.
I think if Kamala... You know what? I think if Kamala ran on that, I think she'd get a lot more votes.
If Kamala Harris promised to invade Russia and China, I would vote for her in a second.
Do you think most of America would vote for her if she promised that?
I don't think a super majority of it, like I don't think 80%, but I think a good 65% of Americans would be.
From what I see from both of the outlets, Donald Trump looks like the crazy guy shouting on the top of the hill, and Kamala Harris just looks like an average, slightly ulterior motives politician.
I think if Kamala were to just run on the "fuck those guys" ticket instead of jerking herself off, she would get a lot more votes.
I think that's probably fair.
Well, Kamala came out looking like average how you look at the average politician. Donald Trump came out looking like a lunatic.
Yeah, but you got to be a crazy person to want to be the president.
This is also true. All right, we are almost 2 hours in. I think I'm gonna go to bed.
Yeah, so
I think this was a wonderful episode.
I think as the first episode, this has been a wonderful episode.
I promise I won't be distracted by sexy ladies next episode.
Okay.
You make her a permanent feature on the podcast.